Inside the Birds is back. What's up, everybody? It's Geoff Mosher and Adam Caplan here for a game preview podcast as we got a really good game this Sunday night prime time between the Eagles and Dolphins. And I've been looking at the NFL schedule this weekend, Adam, and I think a lot of people around the country are looking forward to this game in particular because there's just not a lot of good games. So this is going to be where all the eyes are. Have you seen some of the match? I mean, you got like the Steelers versus now it's escaping me. That
Rams.
game, Rams, that's decent. Yeah. I don't know. There are other games where to me they were kind of like okay. Chargers Chiefs, I guess, is okay.
Yeah, Lions Ravens is the
Forgot
second
about that.
I can't wait for that game. Yeah, I look, you're right though. The Eagles game, I was thinking about this earlier on a show on Thursday. It's just a shame that Max is not available and Slay. We'll get into the injuries in a couple of minutes. It just, I wish they didn't have these issues in the secondary. Safety in particular really is where the problem is.
Yeah,
it's a shame because I wanted this matchup, both teams to be healthy, and the Dolphins are way healthier than the Eagles. But it is what it is, and this is what you have backups for, and this is what you have coaches for, and they'll figure it out.
Yep. I've done a lot of watching of the Miami Dolphins over the last 48 hours, seen a lot of their tape. There's clearly things they do well. We'll get into their historic offense. But there are also things I think that the Eagles do well that will counter what the Dolphins do. And obviously, as you just mentioned, injuries are going to play a big part of this, although it looks like for some players, the outlook is a little bit more optimistic than others, and I think that'll help too. But I suspect that, and we'll get into our predictions later, but I suspect that this will be a pretty good game. Do you get that vibe that it's going to be a nice little, you're kind of like giving me the shrug there. I don't know.
Yeah, the weather's going to clear up. No rain unless something significantly changes. The wind is not going to be quite as bad as we saw days ago, thankfully. But not that Tyreek Hill's going to line up in the slot a lot, but they move him for matchup wise. But the bottom line is, it's just this guy. If the Eagles had two younger cornerbacks in like their mid-20s, I just worry about two older corners, man. The Eagles have the only cornerback tandem of the National Football League of 30 years or older.
Yeah.
About that.
That's pretty rare, especially for the Eagles. They used to be the team that never had 30-year-old.
And I remember Joe Banner, we need to have Joe on again soon, but I remember Joe Banner, the former Eagles president telling me that in fact, he might have been on our show, but I know he was. He said that's just not normal. He definitely, Joe has been a big backer of their roster since 2016. He'll tell me when he doesn't agree with it. He just said it's just unheard of. You don't, and look, he understands they're trying to go for it again, but you wish they had a developmental cornerback in the pipeline, an outside corner. I mean, Joe's been a great story of development as an undrafted guy, but he's like a guy who wants to be physical with you.
Yeah.
I just wish they had that guy you knew for the future. Maybe they get it because they have a lot of draft picks next year as of now. Who knows in 2 weeks? But the bottom line is, I wish they had guys who could really run. Slay could still run. He's always had good speed. But Bradbury, not as much. And that does worry me with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. You don't want to see him do the Waddle because he did it last week. I don't know if you caught that.
Yeah, I saw the little penguin thing. I saw it on tape.
Right.
Yeah. I thought that was pretty crafty, with his last name being Waddle. Exactly. Yeah. No, you don't want to see no waddling going on in South Philly because the fans will not take appreciative of that.
Probably throw like a penguin at him.
That's funny. Come on, man. The fans have evolved since then. Adam, they give standing ovations.
No, I love it. I grew up here. That could go on. I'm really talking generally anywhere. I mean, you see what they did in Buffalo. I don't want to mention what they used to be throwing.
Oh yeah. We know
sexual toys. Anyway,
yes. It's also Kelly Green week, though. I mean, it's been a very exciting week for the team franchise.
Although, did you see Thursday when they were wearing the helmets?
Mm-hmm.
They were wearing the Kelly Green helmet with the regular practice jerseys. So the colors don't match at all.
Yeah, I know.
But it was cool to see that, though. It is something really cool. And I know even Jeffrey Lurie mentioned this. I remember at one of his owners' meetings, press conferences, he was asked about it because the fans are so crazy with the Kelly Green.
Yeah,
and he was clearly aware of it. He said, and he explained how you have to ask a year in advance to get this done.
Mm-hmm.
I got it done. And I know, like, driving around, not that I would wear Eagle stuff, but it just brought me back to my youth when Jaws and Quick, would wear were their 80s jerseys. And then you had the 70s all white jerseys, which I absolutely love. Like they look like sanitary uniforms. Roman Gabriel, if you guys are old enough to remember number 5, and Jerry Sizemore and that group of Mike McCormick was the head coach before Dick Vermeil came in here. But now we get to the green stuff. I love it, man. I'm someone who wears bright colors to play tennis. I love it, man. I think it's awesome.
It certainly is. I look forward to just the Sunday night, the atmosphere of them coming out in the Kelly greens, and I think people are gonna love it. I know they'll love it because they've, as you just mentioned, it's been in demand for so long. I'm glad the NFL finally figured out that it could actually be a moneymaker as well, because that's the only reason why this stuff happens, right? Can it generate revenue? Well, yeah, people are gonna buy the merchandise. Of course it can. So that's good. And in honor of the whole Kelly Green week, we had Mike Quick, who everybody knows, great former Eagles wide receiver, and then now color commentator next to Merrill Reese. We had him on this week's Gun on One with Derek Gunn. And we sort of went into Quick's career, which he had some really interesting things to say about the patellar tendonitis that really cut his career short, because he was having as everybody knows, a great career, which could have been better. And his viewpoint on what he could have been had maybe there been more advances like there are now in sports science. And then he obviously talked about AJ Brown breaking his records. He had a really cool viewpoint on that. And even Tyreek Hill, not only Tyreek Hill, but what he thinks is unique about Tyreek Hill outside of the speed. And Mike Quick does not think Jerry Rice is the greatest receiver of all time, which shocked me. No,
I haven't listened to it yet. I love Mike. You know what I love about him? You ask him a question, you're having a conversation with him. You and I have been around Mike a lot, and just ask him, getting the football conversations, he'll tell you, like, he's pretty opinionated. And I guess I'm not surprised that he said that about Rice, but I wonder, since I haven't watched it yet, so don't give it away. I'm very curious to think, other than Randy Moss, I don't know who else it could be, but okay. Or yeah, he can't be saying T.O. Could he be?
Well, I'll just tell you that he's not just, like you said, he didn't just toss out a name and say, I think he's better. He gave a very detailed, very rational, very firsthand account of why he thought that there was somebody else that theoretically could be the better wide receiver. So it was really good stuff. Glad to have it. Now, even more shocking this week was the Cosell and Clay Harbor Inside the Tape show, which came out last night. It's still available on the platforms now. They had a little bit of a delay, but it finally came out. Greg Cosell flat out said, and I won't give the whole thing away, but he said the Eagles were manhandled up front on the offensive line. But he said not just Jack Driscoll. See, we all know that Driscoll struggled, but he said he was surprised by the quote unquote across the board struggles that the Eagles had against the Jets defensive front. So it was really worth listening to where they struggled, how they struggled, why they struggled. And they actually spent a really good time breaking down the Miami game as well. So recommend that everybody catches that. And then last but not least, we'll be, as we mentioned on the last podcast, we're going to be at Fringe Bar on 140 North Columbus Ave on Sunday night at 5 o'clock from 5 to 7 p.m. doing our Inside the Birds pregame live. Let me just tell you, Fringe Bar is so pumped to have us. We're pumped to be there. Our producers have checked it out. They say the place is great. I've actually been there. I know what it looks like. Nice. It's right on the Delaware waterfront. It's an awesome place. Really excited to be there. As you and I, we put out the ITB challenge, which is if you come to Fringe Bar to watch the show being taped live, and you say, I'm here to see the ITB pregame live,
the ITB,
buy you a drink. Yeah. We're buying you a drink.
Oh, I've got $200 that I'm willing to spend, up to $200. That's all of you, by the way. I'm not buying one person $200.
Yeah. Caplan's buying me $200.
Yeah, exactly. People are, you never know, man. But we're happy to do it, and we can't wait to see people there. And it's right on Delaware Avenue, which, man, I kind of grew up there at the bars in the 80s and the early 90s before I met my wife, man. I lived that area, man. I love it down there.
Yeah, were you wearing Cavaricis, going to the clubs, dancing with the ladies?
It was the Rock Lobster and a Bleacher Sports Bar, which is long defunct.
Right.
And Just that area. Yeah, I love it. And Fringe, can't wait to go, man. Looking forward to it Sunday night.
Nice. Where you splashed the Jakar on? Oh wait, I think I'm describing myself in my 20, not you.
I'm sorry. What was that?
Nothing.
About
Anyway,
cologne? I heard something about cologne.
yeah, a little Jakar clone. All right. So yeah, and obviously John DiFilippo, as always, doing a great job on our Patreon channel, answering viewer questions now, which is unbelievable of him to be doing. So really excited about having that and having that up on Patreon.
He said he's so into it. John told me earlier this week, he goes, I love these questions because it makes him think. Now, yes, red zone, we got a ton of red zone questions. He went over that. We got some Hurts questions. We'll talk about that. But we don't just do tape. Although John sees it differently from anyone else we could possibly talk to because he's lead of the elite in terms of coaching quarterback and calling offense. But we go into philosophy, hard coaching. In this one, we're going to talk about hard coaching, what that means, how he does it, how he coached Wentz, and how he coached Justin Fields. By the way, he coached Jamarcus Russell as a rookie. He's coached Carson Palmer. You go Derek Carr, by the way. Derek Carr is a rookie. How about that?
Crazy.
Yep. So
I do want to thank Tom, Will, and him, I believe it, or if I'm pronouncing that correctly, along with C. James as our latest to jump on, and Alan as well. We've had a bunch of people jump on with us in the last 24 to 48 hours. Patreon. So I just want to, make sure I thank everybody. Again, you want to get in on it. It's patreon.com/InsideTheBirds to get all this great extra content and extra podcasts and Adam's Discord chat with everybody on Wednesdays and our Ask ITB live streams, trying to do our best for you guys. So it's patreon.com/InsideTheBirds. Let's get into a couple of transactions here. First, I want to remind everybody Inside the Birds is presented by our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. It's the exclusive Jersey Shore resort of Inside the Birds. All right, so there were some transactions, some interesting ones. Interestingly enough, the Eagles lost an offensive lineman from their practice squad to the Giants, which is like the second time in 2 years that's happened. It was Tyree Phillips, but in all fairness, the Eagles signed him after the Giants waived him. He was with the Giants last year. Yeah. So the Giants wanted him back. They got him back.
Well, they are so desperate. I'm not saying Phillips can't do the job. In fact, they really liked him. I'm surprised that they cut him. He's really a right tackle. And Evan Neal got hurt, or I believe they think he could play this week, but they have no depth. They're down 3 linemen again. They're in such rough shape on the offensive line. So they signed Tyree Phillips off their practice squad. Yeah, look, that was a guy maybe the Eagles could have looked at developmentally over the next couple of years, but c'est la vie, so is life. He's gone. Mario Goodrich passed through waivers unclaimed. He's back on the practice squad, and he plays slot corner. He plays outside corner. This is another guy, an undrafted guy that, look, they were willing to cut him. And the only way you can get him back to the practice squad is waive him first if he's not vested. So he's back on the practice squad.
Right. And you know what? He needs more time, needs more development. Maybe we'll see him again later at the end of the year. We'll see. Good player, had a good camp. He wasn't going to make the original 53. I think his door opened when Zach McPherson went out and they needed an extra body and they needed to cross-train somebody. And so when Zach went out, he had that opportunity and made the team along with Eli Ricks, right? We were surprised that both made the 53. So, but we knew they wanted to hold on to Ricks. He had the pick 6 in the preseason. He came in with a little more cachet, I guess, than Mario Goodrich. So they were able to keep them both. But I had a feeling we actually discussed this, that you keep Goodrich now, but you can probably, if you need to, release him later in the season when everybody's got their own injuries and their own 53. You'll probably be able to get him through waivers and onto your practice squad. So that's where Mario Goodrich is at the moment. And that is really it for transactions. Let's get into some of the injuries. Before we get into the injuries, why don't we pause to hear a word from our great friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
Okay. Injuries, Adam, and obviously some are bleak, but some other ones might wind up shaping up here. Devontae Smith's already told players that ignore what it says on the injury report. I'm going to play on Sunday. So that's always good to know.
Yeah. All right. So we do an injury report very in depth, and we do it different than anyone else. So we like doing it this way. Here are the guys who are added this week, because this gives you a better perspective of what exactly is going on. Guys are added this week. Devontae Smith, it's a right hamstring injury. It's a second hamstring injury of the season. They got him out there. He got some reps, and they took him out. So he told reporters after practice, don't have to worry about him playing. He'll be out there on Sunday night. Players aren't always right. They know their own bodies, but let's hope he doesn't have a setback, and we'll trust his judgment. Dallas Goedert's expected to play, as I understand it. He got some work in. They list him as limited, but he looked fine doing it. But the big one is this one. Lane Johnson got some work in on Thursday, looked fine. I've been using this term like 100 times this season. I'm going to continue to do it. He's trending towards being able to play. That means he's heading in the right direction. Barring a setback, he should be in the lineup, and boy, do they need him. Defensively, also added this week. Milton Williams with an ankle. He worked Thursday, limited, but he's expected to play. Bradley Roby's not expected to play with a shoulder injury. He could miss a couple games. They'll work through what he's dealing with. Eli Ricks got hurt in the last game. He's expected to play. He worked on Thursday. Reed Blankenship did not work on Thursday. This is his new rib injury, which he had from last week. This is his second rib injury this season. I call him very questionable. We'll see what happens tomorrow. The safety position is in very tough shape.
And still as bad as it can be. Yes.
Yep. I don't know how it could be any worse, right? Still on it. Jalen Carter with his ankle. More on this on Sunday. We got a little bit more detail we're working on. We want to find out what the source of this ankle is. Is it from college, which we talked about last week? Because he was out a while with it, with an ankle problem at Georgia last season. So we kind of want to get a better handle of what this is. Marlon Tuipulotu, this is good. Yes, he's still in the injury report, but he took in a full practice Thursday. So barring something unforeseen, he'll be playing. And then Sidney Brown, now I know he told reporters last week he thought he could go. He didn't. He's had no problems. This is the most he's practiced since he got hurt 4 weeks ago. Looking good to play. The only question now is if he doesn't have a setback, does he start? Because as you just mentioned, here are their healthy safeties right now as we look at it. And it's not a good picture. Let me update this here. Boy, it is right now. Terrell Edmonds, who played, I think, did he play every snap last week? If I'm not mistaken.
Well, wait. Evans got hurt in the game, didn't Evans?
No.
Terrell
Edmonds.
Right, you're right. I know. I'm just trying to think.
Evans was on IR last.
Evans was on IR. Yeah, he had to have, right? I mean, there was no other safeties. That was the only two safeties that were. Remember, they were only two active safeties, so he had to have played.
Yeah, so he played every snap. I imagine he'll do it this week, assuming Sidney Brown's available. I guess they'll have to play him next to him now. But again, it depends on Blankenship, and we'll see what happens today. If Blankenship is ruled out, I know they didn't do it last week, which kind of was a mistake. They got away with it, and they obviously don't want to use Tristan McCullum. But what choice do they have?
They would not.
Right?
They would not. Even if Sidney Brown's healthy, if Reed Blankenship's out and Brown is healthy and can play, I still don't want to go into with just Sidney Brown and Terrell Edmonds as my safeties. I just don't think you can do that.
Did they not go within two with two? Well, they moved. Garner played safety last week. So he played. He was a backup safety last week.
Yeah, it's interesting that they don't have a safety on the practice squad other than McCollum, who's sort of a defensive back hybrid, but they don't have like a pure safety
on the workout list. I didn't see a safety on there, which is kind of stunning to me. They've got now less than 2 weeks to bring in via trade. I know they'd rather not because they finally have a good draft bounty next year with projected compensatory picks.
Mm-hmm.
And I know from talking to some teams, the price is just overall pretty high right now. But what happens is because some teams that are like the Raiders and some of these teams that are 500, if they lose their next two games, well, maybe they like the Vikings. They're teetering on the outside of the playoffs, but if they lose their next two games, what do they really have to play for?
Mm-hmm.
So some of these teams are just hanging in there these next 2 weeks. Maybe the prices drop.
We'll see. I expect the Eagles will be very active, as they always are. Phone calls, everything at the deadline, and they will try. Let's talk about a couple guys who are off the list, which is good news. Tight end Jack Stoll, who has had the shoulder. Fletcher Cox, not even on the list now. He played last week, should play again, so that's always good.
He's good. He's playing. He's good to go. And this is also great. Kobe Dean came out of the game, as we reported 5 weeks ago, he had a sprained foot. He looked fine. Yes, they had a rotation. but he's not even on the injury report because, as we noted last week, when you're on injury reserve and you practice, the league rule changed for the first time ever. If you're on any reserve list and you practice, the club must list what the guy did in practice that day.
Mm-hmm.
They did that last week, as we mentioned. He played. He looked fine. He's healthy. Now the question is, do they give him majority of the reps or do they split it with Morrow? We'll look into that for Sunday.
No, but it is good that he's back, and they're going to need him in this game. I mean, Nakobe Dean has to play a very big role in this game against the Dolphins. So we'll get into that. Of course, the Dolphins have a few injury issues themselves, Adam, and we'll get into that in a second. I want to take one quick second again to remind people about our pregame show that we're doing at Fringe Bar and tell people a little bit more about Fringe Bar. It is the Delaware waterfront's most exciting new restaurant and event space. They specialize in soulful pub cuisine inspired by their chef's culinary roots. It's bold Caribbean flavors like jerk chicken wings, which I love, and tostones, and it shares a menu with a classic pub fare like the Fringe Burger and fish and chips. So you got a little bit of classic bar food, right, mixed with a little Caribbean, which I think is really cool. They have a creative cocktail menu that features 3 handcrafted draft cocktails and a stellar selection of local beers. It makes Fringe Bar the perfect choice for a date night or a late evening with friends, or Inside the Birds pregame live on Sunday for an Eagles watch party. So visit us there at Fringe Bar at 140 North Columbus Boulevard for the live show. And while we're doing the live show, right, there's going to be great food and drink specials. They got a beer garden. They've got the game on in their 250-seat big screen theater, so you don't even have to leave after the show. You can watch it in that huge big screen theater. And while we're doing the show, they're going to be offering half-price wings, $4 draft beers, and an Eagles-themed cocktail featuring their partner Blue Coat Gin. And all Blue Coat drinks will be $8 during game day. And of course, you can support the Phillies too by enjoying Fringe Bar's Red October cocktail. So just come on out, join us again this Sunday. We'll start the show at 5 o'clock. You can certainly show up before that. We'll probably be there a little bit before at Fringe Bar. Again, that is 140 North Columbus Ave. All right.
So I did pick up on your read there that the beer, now I know the mixed drinks are $8 specials, which is actually a really good price, but the beers, I heard a beer special for $4. Did I hear that right?
Yes, $4.
Oh, yeah. I'm in, man. I'm looking for
half price wings.
Yeah. In fact, I remember 3 or 4 years ago when wherever we were, I had some beers on the air. It was awesome. Hey, we could do that. It's the internet. We could do that.
That's right. That's right. Had a couple of sips while we were on air, and it was fine. It felt weird, but then it's like, you're right. It's the internet. We can do this. Yeah. Just got to, keep it like straight and be responsible. All right. So Dolphins injuries, Adam. I think the Eagles, man, with the way they're beat up, it's like, oh, good. You're Devin Achane can't play. All right. He's on IR. He got off to an amazing start for the Dolphins. He's averaging over 12 yards per carry, which is not sustainable, but just goes to show you how much explosion he has. But he is on IR. I think this will be the second game that he's going to be missing, right?
Second or third, yeah. So he's out. So it'll be Jeff Wilson should be activated. In fact, he was available. He was ready last week to come off IR. He's supposed to be their lead back. They paid him to be that guy. He was last season, but he had 2 injuries. So the expectation is he'll be activated tomorrow by 4 p.m. Eastern. If not, what they'll do is they'll go with Raheem Mostert, who, by the way, is incredible. You want to talk about a guy who's had one of the most amazing careers?
Yeah.
Former Eagle. Chip signed him, and his Chip's last year and Mostert's first year coming out of Purdue as an undrafted free agent 15. And with the Eagles, the Dolphins, the Ravens, the Browns, the Jets, the Bears, then the Niners for the last 7 years. The Niners, then the Dolphins last season, Niners for several years, and he's 31. Has had a ton of injuries, lower body, knee. The guy perseveres. He's by the way, he's still one of the fastest running backs in the National Football League.
Oh yeah.
So he'll be their starter unless Jeff Wilson plays. If Wilson plays, he'll probably split it because Wilson hasn't played this season. But Mostert's got the juice. Wilson's a one-cut zone scheme guy. That's why he's there for Mike McDaniel, because Mike knew him from their days with the Niners. But this will be interesting. Eagles have arguably NFL's best run defense, but they've not faced anyone this explosive at running back in Mostert.
No, not at all. Not at all. So the Dolphins are a little bit banged up on the line. We talked about this in our last podcast. They'll be without their left tackle, Teron Armstead, who's very talented, but also is injured a lot, so it's not
Yep.
new terrain for the Dolphins, or when it was with the Saints to be without him. Their fill-in is Kendall Lamb, who's been a journeyman left tackle. The Dolphins are his fifth team. Now, it's an interesting tape watch, right? Because when you watch him on tape, you think he's actually not doing too badly. He's holding up his own, but you then watch the tape and realize, well, all the Dolphins do is three-step drop you to death. So it's not like he has to hold his blocks very long. But nonetheless, there are teams that do blitz Tua and have gone after him, and he's done okay. Now, you put Josh Sweat, you put Hassan Reddick across for him, that's a different story.
Yep.
I haven't seen so far. I watched their Bills game because I wanted to see what the Bills did well against them, and then I watched last week's game against the Panthers. So Panthers have Burns, but he moves around a little bit. It wasn't always Burns versus Lamb. And then the Bills, I don't think Von Miller, did he play that game? I don't know. It didn't stick out to me, but either way, I could tell that Lamb on a three-step drop can hold the block. But if you come after him, or if you ask him to do, 3 to 5 seconds of blocking, that's going to be an issue for him.
Yeah. When you look at Kendall Lamb, he's a career left tackle, right tackle, journeyman type guy. Connor Williams, their center, by the way, has been out 2 out of the last 3 weeks with a groin injury. You might remember Liam Eichenberg was the center.
Yeah.
Second round pick. So if Williams got some work in Thursday, if he can't play, it'll be Eichenberg again. And then defensively is where the big thing is now. Xavier Howard, they think is going to be able to play. They held him out Wednesday, got work in Thursday. Barring a setback, he should be able to play. No, Jalen Ramsey won't be back this week. He just started working. He's been out a couple months with the meniscus surgery, but he's going to be back before the projections, though, which is what he thought he could do. So Eli Apple's playing a lot, who I know people like to go after. Teams like to go after him. Cam Smith is a second-round rookie who might play a little bit. And then, but the other corner is Kader Kohu, who was a really good story as an undrafted free agent last year. Texas A&M. He's a smaller guy, scrappy, competitive. But look, it's Fangio, as John T. Filippo told us, he's going to make you bleed. He made, because they don't blitz a lot. They're very disciplined. Lots of post-snap disguise. They want to make you hold on the football and make you just matriculate the ball downfield. So It won't be easy. It won't be easy, but we'll see what happens.
All right. Yeah. The guy you mentioned, the cornerback for the Dolphins, good story. Yeah. He could be a target. He because he's obviously a good story because he wasn't expected to be great, but he had some issues in some of the tape I saw. So it'll be interesting to see if he gets on the field much on Sunday night. Let's talk matchups, Adam. Eagles offense against the Miami defense. Let me start by saying that I suspect that the Eagles will have watched some tape of Miami and think that they can run. Well, the Eagles can run the ball on anybody except for the Jets, apparently, who have a really good defensive front. But I think this will be a game where not only do the Eagles feel they can run the ball effectively and will run the ball, but should, because you want to have long, grinded out. You want to have sustained drives. You're trying to play defense by playing offense and keep the ball out of Miami's hands with that explosive weaponry they have by having good, long, sustainable drives. So it wouldn't surprise me if they ran the ball more than they did against the Jets, and more recently, and then look for that short game, because the Dolphins do what the Eagles do. Vic Fangio is their defensive coordinator, and as we know with the Fangio schemes, they are going to give you the middle and the edges, the flats, and they're going to say, take it, take it, take it. I guarantee you're going to get impatient, right? The Eagles have been pretty good, especially last year, about finding their spots and being patient. But I think we can both agree that this year, and it's not just us saying it, Greg Cosell seen it on the tape, Jason Avant noticed it in the Q&A show, that Jalen's has not been as patient. He's trying to hit that home run ball a few times. So this is the game. I suspect that they get back to doing what they do best. We'll see.
So I had a coach tell me, who was coach against Fangio. He says Geoff definitely avoids with tight ends to get the football, which I thought was interesting. So maybe Goddard, who's been very quiet this season, saved the one monster game. Maybe he gets involved, because Vic, they're gonna disguise post snap to make Hurts hold on the football. But there's some voids that coaches who have gone up against Vic have found, and one guy mentioned it to me. I'm like, all right, I'll look into that. I thought it was interesting. So But the guys that you're going to face is Christian Wilkins, 94 is really good. Raekwon Davis, 98. Seiler, 92 was a waiver claim from the Ravens some years ago. It's going to be interesting to see what happens here. I look forward to seeing if they can protect, because now you mentioned that earlier in the show that the guy saw the tape and said that I guess Greg said that the Eagles couldn't protect last week and they just couldn't block well. Is troubling to me.
It is, but that Jets front, the more you watch it, right? And you actually were big on this last week going into the game. That Jets front is really good. And because it's not just about the front four, their linebackers are super fast, but Jermaine Johnson and Quinnen Williams and even the Franklin Myers, is that his last name?
He's great. John Frank Myers.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they just come at you and they're tenacious. And they, I think Robert Saleh is a little bit full of himself a little bit sometimes by saying he embarrassed all the quarterbacks.
That was
that was bad words.
But that was.
But you understand what he was getting at. He felt like his defensive front really did take it. I mean, Josh Allen threw 3 picks. I mean, in the first game because he was under duress and tried to be a hero. So they can take it.
Yep. Yeah. I'm just interested to see what Vic does here because he was a consultant for the Eagles, and he I know we had heard that it wasn't just defense; he actually helped the offensive coaches. So, I don't know how well he knows Hurts. I'm not sure how much. What you and I actually saw Vic with the Eagles when he was just visiting at Dolphins camp this summer.
Just visiting.
Before. Yeah, so we'll see.
Here to pick up my paycheck. Just kidding.
What's that?
Just visiting. I'm here to pick up my paycheck.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, in that August. Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see how much that knowledge that he got from being around the Eagles, occasionally last fall and obviously the playoff run. We'll see if that matters. But to me, they got to be able to protect better. There's no question about it. I don't worry about Jeff Wilson. I worry about Raheem Mostert because he's so explosive on outside zone plays.
Mm-hmm.
He's like lightning. It's amazing. Guys at 31, all these injuries, he's so explosive. And then, but sticking back here, we'll go back to the offense. We'll talk about defense later. Just looking at the Eagles stuff. The thing that was disturbing last week is Swift. Yeah, we love that he caught all those balls. No explosives in the pass game. None. I want to see that. I remember you and I were at training camp. We saw Hurts find Swift downfield like 15, 20 yards, sometimes like 40 yards downfield.
Yeah.
I know it's training camp. We're not seeing that at all. Nothing downfield with Swift.
Yeah. No, I think they can get back to that. I mean, Christian Wilkins is a nice defensive tackle, but in general, when I watch them, I felt that the Dolphins were vulnerable up the middle in the run game. In fact, I was watching in that Bills game in the first half, the Bills were in the same exact inside zone run with James Cook, right?
Yep.
3 times in a row from like their own 15 or 14 into the end zone, all up the middle. It reminded me of when the Eagles were playing the Vikings and they ran the same inside zone and the Dolphins did a bad job stopping it. And there were a couple of runs that Chuba Hubbard had last week up the middle against the
saw that early in the game.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, Vic obviously knows that because he saw what they were trying to do to him.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm interested to see they got it. So to summarize, they got to handle Wilkins. There's no question about it, and take advantage of. You mentioned Kader Kohu. So take advantage of whoever plays opposite Howard. It's going to be Kohu.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously go after Eli Apple. The guy keeps getting jobs. He keeps bouncing around, but you go after him. But the big thing is they have to protect better before we move to the Eagles defense versus the Miami offense.
Yeah.
That's the thing. But I and obviously the red zone offense has been, I know it was better last week, but it's not like they had it down there very much.
Right.
They got to run better down there. And by the way, give Swift credit. The touchdown catch he had, that pass was so far behind Hurts. That was an incredible catch, by the way, for the touchdown. A bad throw. I mean, Hurts has got to play better. People are going over the top, though, with the criticism. We get it, folks. We know he's not played nearly as well as last year. He knows it. Mm-hmm. It's not like he watches the tape.
Yeah.
And we know Sirianni coaches hard. And I expect him to play better. But as we close this side of the ball up, their ability to protect is huge. And I'm hoping Lane Johnson holds up. That's a big thing here.
I think that would be a big thing. My whole opinion of this game might change if Lane Johnson is not able to play. Last year when Lane Johnson didn't play, they made the decision to put Mailata Jordan Mailata at right tackle, and then Dillard at left tackle. I don't know if their plan would be to do that again and play Fred Johnson at left tackle or just roll with Jack Driscoll. But again, Dolphins have a good front. They do have some good edge rushers with the kid Bradley Chubb and with Agba and with Jalen Phillips. But again, in the 2 games I watched, I didn't think to me, they were not nearly as good as the Jets, and they were not so fast off the edges like the Eagles have never seen before. I compare them to what I see from the Eagles all the time, and I wouldn't call it close.
And watch my guy Andrew Van Ginkel, who's playing like
play hair on fire.
He's so number 43, plays inside linebacker, outside linebacker. He's really good, super underrated. Their front's really good. I mean, their front's. Last week I was stunned when the Panthers got up 14-0. I'm like, what the hell is wrong with their defense? Then they completely shut Bryce Young down the second half, and obviously they went crazy on offense.
Mm-hmm.
But the Eagles, look, they can't be taking 4 outs or struggling in the red zone again, because with what the Dolphins have on the other side, folks, they got to execute.
Yes, I would suspect that if everything goes according to plan for the Eagles, that either DeAndre Swift or Dallas Goedert will have a huge game. That's what I suspect, just based on like what we know about the defense, right? And how you attack it. You attack it on the edges. You throw to your running backs. You throw to your tight ends. They play a lot of zone. They're going to give you that space. They want you to do it, thinking you're going to make a mistake. The Eagles got all their mistakes out last week because that's what they do. Just like the Washington game last year. They get it all out in one game, and then they come back, and then they're ready to go.
Do we know, did the Jets, okay, so they mugged the Eagles offensive line, but did they zone in coverages? Do we know what their primary coverage was of the Jets?
You know what? Well, why don't we? I would. Yes, I saw. I mean, typically it's cover 3 because Robert Saleh comes from the cover 3 lineage. Yeah. That was mostly their style of coverage. But we can talk
Greg.
Greg. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I just was shocked with them putting these guys out here who should never be playing. They're really just practice squad guys. Yeah. Some of these corners that they put out there, I was just dumbfounded that they could not. And the weather had nothing to do with the weather cleared up. I just couldn't understand it. But sometimes a game like that writes you. It gets you right mentally. Talking to players over the years when they have a bad loss. I'm not saying the Eagles were full of it or full of themselves or anything like that, but when they probably went into expecting to win and then embarrassed on offense like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the defense is still balling. Their defense has been great, but maybe this just gets Hurts back. We know how hard he works, but getting him back to just where he was a couple games ago, and obviously back to last year. And Brian Johnson, Sirianni got to get it going here. I mean, they have to be better on offense.
100% agreed. And again, they turned the ball over 4 times. That almost never happens. I'd be very surprised if they had 4 turnovers or even 3, right? Something like that, where they're just making sloppy mistake after sloppy mistake. So far in his career, Adam, Nick Sirianni, coming off a game like that, has figured out a way to clean them up pretty quickly. So I imagine, again, you're coming home, and we didn't mention this, but I want to bring this to light because I think it's very important.
Mm-hmm.
The Miami Dolphins have played a lot of home games so far, and I always believe they enjoy a tremendous advantage in September and early October because it's still very hot and very humid there. They've played 2 games. They played 3 games on the road. 2 of them were in milder temperatures, right? New England and Buffalo. They scored 20 points against Buffalo and 24 against New England. So when they've had to come north and play on grass and it's not 80 degrees out, it's been less of a track meet for them and more, they're not putting 40, 50, 60 up like they did against Denver. The other road game that they played was Chargers, which is a warmer weather climate. And
that was first game 1. It was crazy, wasn't it?
Right,
High score?
36-34 game. Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, I think you come here by 8:00 that night on Sunday night, it's probably going to be upper 40s. It's not going to be nice Miami weather. I believe it's supposed to be high that day of 58. So you got to think that by night, it's going to be in the upper 40s.
Right now, 48 hours away from the game, a little bit over 48 hours. It's supposed to be Sunday night at 8:30, 8:15 area.
Yeah.
Let's see. It's going to be low 50s. Wind is not as bad as we thought originally, which is great. Between 12 and 14 miles an hour. So that you could throw in that. Oh, by the way, the last time the Eagles lost back-to-back games was last year. when Hurts didn't play in week 16 at Dallas, it was a Minshew game. That was when they lost 40-34. It was a great game to watch, but they wound up losing. Then Minshew started again in week 17 when they lost to the Saints in that awful game.
Yeah.
So that was it. And as you mentioned a couple minutes ago, Sirianni's got he just has this way about reaching his players. And as he talked about in his press conference earlier this week, the players are self-accountable. They had that meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And they're pretty much a self-motivated team. Nobody's ever perfect. We know that. We get it. And I expect them to bounce back. But man, here's the thing: as we go to the last part of the show, which is probably the most important in a way. How in the world are they going to stop this Dolphins offense?
So I think it's not going to be as difficult as one might think.
Okay.
And again, I'm going to go back to the fact that against the Bills and against the Patriots, who have good defensive fronts, they did not rip up the scoreboard, right? They scored more manageable points. The Eagles have a very good run defense. I believe, like I mentioned earlier in the show, their entire offense is a 3-step drop offense. Unless they're running a boot, unless they're doing some kind of play action that has him rolling out of the pocket, which they do on third down a lot. The whole idea, and you hit this on the head, like when you were telling me about Tua a couple of weeks ago, is to get the ball out of his hands to his first read. If he's got to go to his second read, he gets he does not want to be in that pocket. So he starts to get a little erratic. I saw a bunch of second read type throws that were off the mark. All right. He's taken a lot of hits. You can understand why this guy does not want to be in the pocket. He's had a lot of concussion issues, right?
What happens is when he doesn't see his first read, he looks like he's frozen.
Yes.
And I tell people he could be 300 pounds. It's not going to matter.
Yeah.
He worked out and did all this stuff. It has nothing to do with his ability to get rid of the football quickly. He's been great so far because he's getting rid of it so quickly. You could have a bottom 10 offensive line, but if you get rid of it quickly, you're defeating the pass rush. He's been able to do it so far. Now,
yes,
again, if they take away that one read, by the way the Eagles are getting pressures, he's in trouble.
Right.
And that's got to happen in this game. And Reddick has been phenomenal. They got to bring it because this is also a great test for them because Tua's been so quick with the football, getting it out of his hands. I know that Desai does more disguised coverage. That's another part of this because they're obviously going to play a lot of zone, but it's how they play their zones because Tyreek's incredible. Waddle's really, really good. Either fastest tandem in the National Football League. There's no doubt about that. We know what Tyreek Hill just did 2 years ago here with Kansas. He humiliated the Eagles secondary. And I know they're not going to press, but they've got to do something to make Tua make a mistake. There's got to be something else they can do here.
Right, which is why I feel like it all starts with stopping their run. Their run game is what you would expect it to be. It's Niners-like, it's Shanahan-like, right? They're going to orbit motion Waddle or Hill to the right, and then they're going to at the same time move a tight end to the left. And then what they're going to wind up doing is just handing up the ball up the middle because they think that they've moved guys right and left, and now they're going to go up the middle or vice versa. The Eagles are a disciplined team. As the biggest thing they have to do, Adam, to me, is tackle. Okay. You can't, what separates, I think, the Dolphins from the Eagles and every other offensive team is, you just mentioned it, the speed. They have the ability with 3 or 4 different players to take a 6-yard gain and make it a 56-yard gain if you miss a tackle. And obviously Mike McDaniel's really good at getting his ball carriers and playmakers in a spot where they may only have one guy to beat. All right. So, because Mike Gill asked me this the other day, he said, the Eagles actually have better offensive personnel man to man than the Dolphins. So why do the Dolphins average 10 more points? And then after watching tape, I realized it's because Devontae Smith's great, but you can't throw him an 8-yard pass and watch him turn it into a 58-yard pass on every play the way Waddle and Hill are. I mean, AJ Brown, yes, but Devontae Smith, no. Dallas Goedert, no. And even DeAndre Swift is not going to do it the way Raheem Mostert does. So that's, to me, is the biggest core. If you make your tackles, right, and you can get them into 2nd and long, 3rd and long, then you're able to do some things on your back end that have to force Tua to look to his 2nd and 3rd read. And that's where
they're going to get him.
Eagles pressure will get him, because that's where he does not. Adam, I have never watched tape like this before where a quarterback hit his first read as much as I did in these 2 games.
It's insane. Yeah, I give him credit. McDaniel's reached him. He's got him to get rid of the ball quickly. He's decisive. But
It
this
feels
is where
unsustainable, to be honest with you, though. It feels unsustainable to get through an entire
he's-
seven when you're only hitting your first read all the time. I mean,
it's amazing. I mean, and the scheme, because the Shanahan scheme, I remember, running back, power back, for the Niners and Jaguars. Carlos Hyde told me many years at camp, at Niners camp, he said he never played an offense where he had so much room to run.
Yeah.
And because he's Kyle's scheme is a space creator. It does it in a passing game. You see how it creates for Purdy passing lanes. And Purdy's a pretty good processor, but didn't have a very good arm. But his ability to throw precisely on time, that's what this offense is. And he's really doing it. Now, the key is, since the Eagles are not really a press corner team, what could he do post snap and or post snap, pre-snap to post snap? That's something that Chuck Pagano told us on Patreon that's something to watch for. So we'll look for that.
Yep.
Their tight ends only block. They don't throw. Durham Smythe rarely gets the football. It's all about those two receivers. Braxton Berrios, who's their special teams returner, who might be a gadget guy. You might see that with the orbit motion. He does that as well. He's got really good short area quickness. You know who's on that team? Robbie Anderson-Chosen, former Temple star receiver, who could still run a little bit. He's in the twilight of his career. So, when he goes in the game, and Cedric Wilson, who the Eagles know because he used to be with Dallas, who's got a reprieve, and Chase Claypool, I don't know if he'll ever play for them, but he's on there as well.
I forgot that they had Chase Claypool. That's right. They also have former Eagle River Craycraft, who is, I believe, on injured reserve for them.
Yeah, he is. Who, I'll tell you what, I'm glad
He's
you mentioned
made a name for himself. Yeah,
he did. He got hurt, unfortunately. But yeah, so that's the receiver group. That you got Isaiah Wynn. For the life of me, I don't know why they drafted Isaiah Wynn. The Patriots as a left tackle. He was too small. He's now playing guard for the Dolphins.
Mm-hmm.
Robert Hunt's an okay right guard. Austin Jackson is sort of underachieved as a tackle, as a first rounder. Like, they spent draft capital, but these guys clearly have not been good enough. Now, they've been okay this season, as we said. They're Shanahan offense. So Alec Ingold's their fullback, and if he's got an injury, if he doesn't play, they'll just go with the tight end there. They'll solve that. But it's, folks,
make the tackles. Just make the, because I think that interior offensive line can be had. Hunt, like you mentioned, I think that they can be had. I think the Eagles can suffocate them, but they've got to make the tackle. If you miss tackles, forget it. You've got no chance.
It's over. Fastest trio: Mostert, Hill, and Waddle, and thankfully for the Eagles, Achane isn't playing because he's faster than all of them.
Yuck, I know. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, and then Salvin Ahmed, another former Niner who was claimed off waivers a couple years ago.
Yeah. So
he's there. The kid Chris Brooks is an undrafted free agent who was getting a little bit of a run. He got hurt, so he's going to be out of bed. Who's at number 35 at running back. So there it is, folks. We'll have more on Sunday's our pregame show from French Bar. Can't wait to do that. But man, I can't wait for this game. And I know Desai's done a really good job, but this is unlike any matchup he's had. This is going to be fascinating.
It is going to be a fun one. The Dolphins, to your point, by the way, are the 5th highest scoring team in NFL history through 6 weeks.
Oh.
Do you want to? Can I pop you on the top 4?
Greatest show on turf has to be one of them. No?
That's one of them. Yep.
Rams. Okay. Jeez. Let me see. What else could I? What else could I put?
I think
all
AFC.
Right.
A couple.
Okay.
AFC.
Now we're going. You said NFL history. Okay. Well, Chiefs. Yeah. Chiefs.
No, the Chiefs are actually not on it.
Really?
Colts.
Colts. One of the Peyton Manning teams.
A Peyton Manning team, yes, but the Colts, no.
Denver.
Yes,
Denver.
The 2013 Broncos actually are the number one, 265 points.
Oh, in the first
6 games.
How much in the first 6?
265. Remember, that team dropped a 55 burger on Chip Kelly in Chip Kelly's first year, if you remember. I was there.
At Denver, right, wasn't it?
Yeah, at Denver. So you got Denver number 1 at 265. The Rams, greatest show on turf, 2,262. You're missing 2 obvious.
Patriots.
There you go.
Brady with Randy Moss.
Right, that's 3. And then I'm sorry, that would be 4. So you're missing the 3rd team. I was surprised by this. I didn't realize this team. I'm going to tell you because I don't think you'll.
What conference? Don't tell me the team. What conference?
NFC.
Okay. Bill Walsh Niners.
No. Much more recent.
It can't be Brady and Bucks.
No. This one surprised me because
I'm
They
baffled.
had good personnel, but it, they obviously had a great quarterback, but I don't think of this team as that prolific offensively.
Atlanta with Matt Ryan one year? It can't be. No?
Good guess, but no. It's the 2009 Super Bowl. This is the only one of the teams that actually won the Super Bowl of these 5, the 2009 New Orleans Saints.
Oh, with Breeze. Okay.
Breeze.
Wow.
Who's the wide receiver? Why can't all of a sudden I'm blanking?
Michael Thomas, was he there then?
No, this is 2009, right? Then they have another guy. Marquez Colston.
Yeah. Oh no,
Devery Henderson. Right, Devery Henderson.
Yep. Who could run?
And I don't even remember who the running backs were at that point. Was it like?
Oh, my guy Deuce McAllister.
Was he still there in 2009?
Maybe,
They won a Super Bowl. Okay.
Super Bowl year. Reggie Bush, Marcus Colston, Devery Henderson could run.
Yeah.
Our guy Jari Evans.
Oh, did they have
Jeremy
the tight
Shockey.
end? Did they have Jimmy Graham on that team?
Shockey? No, but Jeremy Shockey. But you ready for this one? He's the head coach right now.
Oh man, a head coach,
Yeah.
but on offense,
pretty damn good one. Yeah.
He
was with the team. He was with the team.
Well, Dan Campbell, of course.
Yes,
Dan Campbell.
He was. He won. It was on IR that year. Their punter Thomas Morstead is still punting. He's now with the Jets.
That is crazy.
Lance Moore, Bobby Meacham, Robert Meacham.
Yeah,
could run a little bit, but you're right. Devery Henderson could flat out fly.
Deep threat.
Bush. Here's the guy, Pierre Thomas, who was really good.
Yep, that's who it was. Pierre Thomas.
And former non-Eagle legend Mike Bell.
I knew you were going to say that. There's another former Eagle on that was on that team. Kyle Eckel.
Kyle Eckel, the fullback, yeah. Was it Navy, right? Was he
Navy fullback? Yeah, definitely.
Right. Wow, good stuff, man.
That was good stuff. All right, we are going to take a break real quick and hear from our friends both at Sky Motor Cars. But before that, of course, check out our friends at PHLSportsNation.com, enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at PHLSportsNation.com and on Twitter at PHLSportsNation. Now let's hear a word from our friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schiller, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
And if you happen to stop into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. All right, the moment of truth is here. Adam, you start up. Who is winning this game? What is the score? You tell me. The Eagles were favorites. They were 1.5. They actually was up to 2, I think.
2.5.
Yeah. 2.5 now. Wow, it keeps rising. All right.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Lane Johnson's good. They think Lane Johnson's going to play.
There you go. I've got it. Eagles 27, Dolphins 33.
Wow, you have a high scoring one.
I do. I know. What's wrong with me?
60 points.
I want to know when the last time, maybe people out there know, I can't remember the last time I picked against the Eagles. It's got to be at least a year.
Yeah.
I was so bullish on the Eagles last year. It would be so rare. I'm just so worried about their secondary. And I don't know. I can't wait to talk to Avant and Cosell Sunday on our pregame show to see what they think and how the Eagles could defend these guys. I have no idea. Tyreek Hill, I mean, T.O. obviously, but I'm talking the last 10 to 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know of a receiver I got more excited to watch in training camp than Tyreek Hill. And when you and I got to see him with the Dolphins, then I saw him against the Bucks, and I mentioned this before, him running Carlton Davis inside out. Like, it was just unbelievable. You just don't see stuff like that.
Right.
And I know it's a regular season game. Hey, this could be a Super Bowl preview. Who knows?
It really could. And how cool is it that it's Jalen Hurts versus Tua Tagovailoa, the two Alabama quarterbacks. By the way, there's like 312 Alabama players that are going to be playing in this game when you count Jalen Waddle, right, and Landon Dickerson, and who else? Well, actually, Tyreek Hill started off at Alabama, if I'm not mistaken.
Did he?
I think didn't he get kicked off the team and have to go to South Alabama or something like that? Either way, there's a lot of Alabama between these two teams.
And to think that the Eagles ignored that school for decades,
mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden got it right. They started going to that school. Started drafting players. I don't know why. It was really weird.
Julio Jones, by the way, we didn't even talk about that.
Yeah. And Julio. Look, we'll see. Boy, the way he was talking to the media earlier this week, it sure sounds like a fait accompli. He'll be activated Saturday. And quite frankly, if he shows he's in shape, they should give him a limited package and of plays here, particularly in the red zone where they've really been shockingly disappointing. But we shall see. Can't wait for it to preview that show. 5 to 7 p.m. at Fringe Bar off Delaware Avenue.
That's right. All right. I'm picking the Eagles to win. I do think they're going to win. I
Ooh.
think that what jumped out to me when I was doing this research on the top scoring teams, the Broncos, Rams, Saints, Patriots, and Dolphins, is Peyton Manning, Kurt Warner, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, and then Tua Tagovailoa with the Dolphins. Like all those guys I mentioned can get to a second and third progression, and they were known for it. I haven't yet seen that with Tua. I think the Eagles' defensive front will be overwhelming against him and force him to make some pretty tough throws, some bad throws. You can only get to that first read against a team like the Eagles so many times. So I do think that's going to be the difference. So because of that, I also think it'll be a little bit more lower scoring. So I'm picking the Eagles to win. Eagles 27, Dolphins 23 is my score.
Ooh, that would technically be under. The over-under is like 51.5. And I cannot believe if all games are going under, you'll probably be right about it. But we'll see. I can't wait. This is I don't know if I've had anticipation for an Eagles game like this other than the Super Bowl maybe or playoffs or something, but it's so fascinating. All the changes that the Eagles have had on their coaching staff are still really good. Obviously, they're one of the best teams in the National Football League. They'll bounce back. But this is just I don't know what the side can do to slow this train down, man. It's but we know the teams that have had success against the Dolphins make Tua hold on to it. We'll see.
We will see. All right. We'll see you, everybody who can come to the Inside the Birds pregame live on Sunday night at 140 North Columbus Boulevard. Again, that's Fringe Bar, and we're going to have a great time. Look forward to seeing everybody out there. That's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles intel. As always, we thank you for flying with us inside the Birds.